Let's see if it works. Looks like we're live. We should be good. I'm going to run. Wow, we really looked like we knew what we
Whoa.
were doing right there.
That looked so professional. I love the drippies, and then just like the text appeared. It was very cool.
We're
Very
really
professional.
on it, or at least we can make it look like we're really on it. So we'll start with that.
Yeah,
Jess, thanks for being on the show. This is our first live, and you bullied us into it. So thank
I
you so
did.
much.
I was like, I'm not coming on this unless it's live. No, no, thanks for having me, Anna.
Yeah, this will be a riot. The backstory behind that is I asked Jess to be on with some back and forth. She agreed, and then she started posting to all her followers that it was going to be live. And usually these are pre-recorded, but
Whoopsie.
we like to make our guests have a good time, so we're live, and we'll see how it goes. Jess, tell
Perfect.
everyone kind of who you are, what you do, um, and we'll just kind of roll from there.
Yeah. So my name is Jess Hanna. I go by Jess the Maker on Instagram and dabbling in TikTok a little bit here and there now. And I am a content creator that focuses on creating fun, relatable content for the mountain bike industry.
I was going to ask, you already answered one of my first questions. Do you
Uh,
consider yourself a pro mountain biker?
a professional mountain biker? Oh, that is a really good question. I thought about, so I do also coach. I'm a mountain bike coach as well. And so it's weird. Would I call myself a professional mountain biker, or would I call myself like a mountain bike professional? I think the latter. I guess,
It's
right? There's this idea that being a pro mountain biker means that you're a racer, right? So I'm not a racer, but I do consider myself a professional in the space.
But you also, not to get into detail, but
Right.
presumably make money, possibly a
Yeah,
living off of mountain biking.
this is true. Yeah. Yeah. So I do. Yeah. I make my primary source of income right now is in through mountain bike stuff. So whether that's coaching or doing content creation. So yeah, I guess I am a pro. Am I having this like realization in the live?
I think, I had Jonathan Buckhouse on the podcast a couple months ago, and he's a huge snowboard YouTuber, and he
Yeah.
makes a lot of money snowboarding. But like, he is admittedly not the world's greatest snowboarder, but he calls himself a pro snowboarder, and it bothers people. It because
Oh.
he's not winning comps, and it's like, no, but like, without the snowboard,
Mm.
he wouldn't get paid. So I don't know. It's like one of my favorite questions for creators, and because if you weren't mountain biking,
Mhm.
arguably you wouldn't
Yeah.
be getting paid to create content.
Yeah, I guess that is true. Yeah, this is something I've thought about a lot, especially since this wasn't always my profession, right? This is very recent. I do come from a creative background, but, and hence why my Instagram handle, people ask me all the time, like, why Jess the Maker? Like, why is that your name? And that's because my previous business, I freelanced for a long time and worked in tech, but I was a graphic designer slash creative director in the past. And so that was why that was my name. And I was just maybe too lazy to change it. Like, I don't know what else it would be, but that's kind of where the where a lot of that stems from is my previous business. So
And I mean, you're making content, you're still making.
yeah, I'm still making stuff, and I think to your point about if I didn't have the mountain bike, and I think about this a lot. If for whatever reason I just didn't mountain bike anymore, I couldn't mountain bike anymore, at least I still would find ways. Like, I think at the heart of my brand and the heart of what I do is I love making stuff and being creative. And so I do still think there's room to go other directions. And so I think I left it open that way to kind of give myself room to grow and continue to grow in that.
Yeah, we'll talk about growth, but I think we
Yeah.
got to backtrack
Oh,
first.
okay. Sorry. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's a great answer, and I love it, but I don't want to jump and then really come back.
Okay.
What does Jess's childhood look like? And we don't have
Oh,
to go like super, super, super back, but like, give
yeah.
me a quick, one, two, three, and then, hopefully we'll get a full circle on how we got here.
Okay. So yeah, so my mom immigrated here from South Korea when she was still pregnant with me. So I say I was made in Korea, but I was born in the USA. And my dad was in the military, and so my mom came over to the States and lived with my dad's family. So I grew up in Pennsylvania in an area called the Poconos, if anyone's
Oh,
familiar.
yeah. Just in the
Yeah,
Poke 4 days ago.
the Pokes.
The
Yeah,
Poke,
the
home of home of Big Bear Mountain. And
yeah, yep.
is it Big Bear? I don't know.
There's
What's it
like
called?
Jack Frost, Big Bear,
Big Boulder.
Camelback,
Big Boulder. That's what
Big
it is.
Boulder.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking of. Mountain
yeah.
Creek, kind of
Yep, Mountain
close.
Creek is close to there. Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's where I grew up. And my parents, um, for the longest time, I kept asking my parents for like a little brother, little sister. That didn't happen until like 17 years later. I mean, they both had split, and both my parents remarried. So I grew up an only child, and I do think a lot of my imagination and creativity really stems from being a kid that grew up as an only child. I don't know if any other only children out there know that like you have to find ways to entertain yourself, So I think that I did that quite a bit and had to kind of like use like, when I would play, and especially when I would get around other kids who would play out loud, who would like talk out loud as they played, I'd be like, that's super weird, right? Because I would always be like in my head with these imaginary storylines and but like it probably looked really weird because I was just like, but yeah. So that's like I guess my childhood in a nutshell, but I always enjoyed making my parents laugh and making my friends laugh. And um in high school, I don't know what they call those, like when your senior class votes for you for certain things. What is that called?
Yeah.
There's a name for it.
I don't know. You win I won class clown.
Yeah,
It makes
okay, I wasn't class clown, but I was voted like most likely to be rich and famous. Still working on the rich part, but I think I'm going somewhere. I don't know.
I mean, you're kind of famous. You're internet famous.
Yeah, that's another thing that's kind of a really interesting thing because this did happen pretty fast, and I'm sure we'll go there, and I'm happy to talk about that too. This is really in this last 6 months or so that this is really kind of blown up. So
It's bizarre. It's such a crazy thing.
yes.
So, were you filming? Like, I'm picturing little Jess with like a high
Mhm.
8 camera, like creating her own content, like just to like, or is this like, are there a bunch of old films that we are going to see in 3 years once you make it just huge and they do like a behind the scenes of you and there's just like
I hope
little
so.
Jess
Yeah.
running around with camera?
It's probably good that smartphones and all that didn't exist when I mean, I wish they did, and I also am glad they didn't though, because I do think it'd be a lot easier to get that footage. I do have tapes that I need to comb through, and like look through some stuff. But yeah, I mean, I remember distinctly recording some silly stuff just with like my best friend growing up. Like we really loved Jurassic Park, and we decided to make our own Jurassic Park sequel. So, stuff like
Please
that.
leave that.
Yeah,
Please.
I need to find that. I need to find that.
Yeah. I probably have 15 tapes of like me and my idiot friends doing stuff.
Nice.
And like some of it is like a couple of my friends are like big in like the NFL world. And I'm like,
Oh,
is this blackmail at this point? Like we were like
probably.
16 playing like nutball because we were like inspired by Jackass. And like, I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
but that was like what I grew up with,
Yeah,
that's just, I'm like, at this point,
yeah. I feel
I
like
don't
we're
know.
a similar generation then because, yeah, I remember when Jackass came out and that was, like, the funny thing, and
It changed my
it's just
life, like what
yeah,
good or bad or whatever. Like it was just like, it gave me hope to be me, which is really odd and weird.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I think Ethan's in here hacking away. Internet famous versus real famous. It's a
Oh,
different
interwebby.
thing.
It is. It is a different thing. Um, yeah, so I don't know, I think the creativity just carried me through no matter what I chose to do, as soon as I graduated college and whatnot. I That was the common thread, and I think I started to realize what that common thread was just recently, which is funny because before I think we mentioned we kind of bonded about living on the road. You still live on the road, Adam. I do not. After 2 years, I was like, cool.
Still
That was
homeless.
fun. Still homeless. Our house looks like a dump though, but I mean, so if that's any consolation. But yeah, so when I lived on the road, I had to find some sort of other creative outlet. I was still doing freelance design work, but I started to make trash art. And I don't know if this is something Ethan can pull up too. It's still an Instagram that exists, but I just haven't posted to it in a while. I was making garbage art like on the road because I was so taken aback by like people who would litter and just like toss a bunch of stuff. And so I would letter like funny phrases onto this litter and then like take photos of it, post it on it was called Trash Talk Diaries. And it's still there, I believe, at Trash Talk Diaries. And yeah, so I did that. So I feel like no matter what I did from when I graduated college until now, that common thread was humor. It had to be something kind of funny and quirky, and then also allow me to kind of make it into something, right? Like something tangible, whether it was like this garbage art or now videos. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you say trash or garbage art because when I learned photo, one of like my mentors was like, take pictures of ugly things and make them beautiful. Like
Yeah.
take pictures of dirty dishes. And like if you frame that properly, you can make it look like a photo that you would stare at for 5 minutes. And then you'd be like, oh, that's dirty dishes. So
Yeah.
it is interesting on like making, I mean, I'm literally trash art like every day that I'm just like a piece of trash. And I just,
No.
here I am. I'm presentable. No, but it is. There's something to be said on like on trash art and like being creative
Yeah.
and forcing your mind to like.
Hmm.
It's easy to make something pretty beautiful. Like it's really hard to
Hmm.
make something that would be known as garbage, like art. Like, and no,
Yes.
it's
No,
cool and
totally.
it's interesting and like all those
Mhm.
like weird. I hate saying weird, but that like folk art of like old metal and like propane things.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, oh, that
Yeah.
someday that'll be me. If I ever own property, I'll just have a bunch of old weird sculptures out of
Yeah.
trash.
Yeah, it was certainly getting weird after a while. My ex-husband was like, I was just the other thing I thought was interesting was it was forcing me to look at something with a different lens, right? You would see that litter and I would be like, "Oh," like I would get excited after a while to find another piece of garbage. Like I'd be like, "Oh my God." And then I would stuff it in the back of the truck and like when you're living on the road, so we had a tow behind RV, but there's not a lot of space for more stuff, right?
It's
Like
limited.
limited. And so I had a decent sized box of just garbage. That was like my queue of things I was going to make stuff with after a while. But so yeah. But I think the kind of fun thing about that was I wasn't really with that project, I wasn't aiming to make money or do anything with it. It was just a creative outlet and I really enjoyed doing it. It changed my perspective about litter and garbage and picking it up and doing something about it. So yeah.
Yeah. What did you study in college? You mentioned school.
Yeah, I went to a very small liberal arts school in Pennsylvania, in Scranton actually. And I studied graphic design. So I got my bachelor's of fine arts in graphic design. And I originally when I first applied for, to get into college, I actually wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. My mom being you know, I guess the stereotypical South Korean immigrant mom was just like, you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or, something. And I was like, I'm going to go to art school. But I know, but I will say my mom was like, all right, like I actually got a really like a very, very good scholarship to go. And so I kind of just went to the first place that would give me the most financial aid and grants and things like that and scholarship. And so that was really nice. And originally went for art education and then took a graphic design class as one of my like prerequisites and then just fell in love with that.
How long did you work in that world?
13 years.
Okay,
So
so you had a tenure in that. Like that was
yeah. Hmm.
up until
Yeah.
I don't want to age you, but like up until a year ago,
Literally, yeah, yeah, yeah.
you were doing graphic design
Mhm.
full time.
Full-time graphic design, and I had always kind of like freelanced here and there, but I went from right out of college working for an advertising agency, which I really do think dovetails into what I do now because when I got that job right out of college, it was a small crew. It was a super fun atmosphere. I was the web design person on the team, but I got to help with commercial sets and like filming. My boss was really, really good at radio jingles and making super funny radio jingles. And so
Dream job.
oh, yeah, and so I got to be able to really it was a really cool environment to kind of just foster creativity and just kinda we would just pitch ideas, and that atmosphere was super fun. So I did that for a few years and then kind of transitioned from there and went into startup world. So I've actually worked for 2 different startups, in that time, both of which had, been acquired and whatnot. So I kind of would just like leave and then, oh, that was great, and freelance and then another startup. So yeah, doing design for those startups. And at one point, I was creative director for the previous startup. So yeah.
Designers' brains must be like I don't know how they work. We did a
I
whole
also don't
redesign.
know how they work.
We did a whole redesign with the collective and what we do, and like I
Mhm.
recommended my friend Chris, who like great friend of mine, and I think he's a fantastic designer. And we just like literally threw shit at a wall in a Zoom conversation.
Yep.
And somehow he like took that shit. I mean, maybe we'll say
Yep.
trash, and like created
Yeah.
what we ended up with. And it's like
Yeah.
it's just fantastic. And like the presentation on how you guys deliver that type of stuff is like, this is what it'll look like on a hat, and this is what it's going to
Yes.
look like on a t-shirt. And it's like
Mhm.
that that mind is very, you have to be a certain type of person to have that mind. And I don't think you get to choose it. And like a lot of people are creatives, but I think when it comes to like logo work and graphic design
Mhm.
and advertising is a little different because it is so trend.
It is.
Um, but
Yeah.
like, I mean, the Nike check mark, like that's
Mhm.
timeless. Like that is like that'll
Mhm.
never be extinct. Like they never
Yeah.
have to change that. And that's, I don't know. It's insane. I
Yeah.
don't know where I'm going with that other than just like I don't know how your brains work. It's insane to me.
Yeah.
How do we get to Jess? I don't want to say the maker, just the creator now, the creative content. Where does mountain biking fall into play? You're just mountain biking this whole
Oh.
time as leisure?
No, man, I so when
No.
yeah, no, it wasn't leisure in the beginning at all. It was like, how am I survive it was like survival. It was, I my so I was previously married, and when that partner and I were just dating, he is an avid mountain biker and a very, very good mountain biker. And so when I kind of got into the mix of like wanting to kind of spend more time with him, and I was like, okay, I could give this a try. It had been a while since been a beginner at anything, and if you could relate to that, that feeling is super frustrating when you're like, wow, I just really suck at this. And so I remember, we borrowed a bike from one of his buddies. It was like his buddy's girlfriend's bike that was 2 sizes too large. It was a giant, uh, hardtail, and I wasn't even on a mountain bike trail when I think I was just on a double track ATV path, and I something scared me, like, I don't know if it was like a rock or something, and I just grabbed a fistful of front brake and I endoed. I had like dirt and rocks like in my helmet. Just it was, and so it was not love at first ride for sure. But I'd say a few years into it, I met actually in Ithaca, New York, where I know you're very close to right now up in Buffalo. But I met a group of women who would do group rides and things like that. And I started riding with these women, and I was like, oh, this okay, like, you mean that I don't have to die every time I get on the bike or, feel like I'm almost going to die? And it was social, and I don't know if you could tell, a bit extroverted. So I think that also, that part of it was nice, like getting to meet other people and make friends through that. Because, you know, I think a lot of folks post college or post, you know, your age of when you were in school and you were forced to become friends with people because of proximity, you know, now in adulthood, it's a lot harder to make friends. At least I feel that way. And so I think having something like mountain biking or just a general love for the outdoors, you you sort of form bonds with other people that have that similar, you know, love, and it makes it a lot easier, right, to make friends. And so that's really how we met our entire friend group, in Ithaca while we lived there, and that's how I got started in mountain biking, and I kept up with it. I, after a while, wanted to, and this kind of dovetails into how the video creation maybe things started to form. But in 2016, a friend of mine from that friend group and I entered a contest, that Live Ladies All Ride was holding, and it was, they were going to fly you and your bestie out to Grand Targhee, Wyoming for a full weekend of like one of their clinics. And it was like all expenses paid. You know, they were going to give you a demo bike. They were going to, you know, pay for your lodging and all this stuff. And my friend Gretchen and I were like, well, let's put a video together. Let's try to like win this thing. Actually, my friend Amy sent us the link and we were like, oh, that sounds fun. So we entered. I think we literally submitted the video right before the deadline and just kind of didn't think we were, honestly, we did not think we were going to win, but we were like, well, let's try. Turns out we won and they flew us out. And I think that whole experience, really is what kicked off, you know, I guess maybe my, you know, love for coaching. I got to experience female coaches through that. And that inspired me to go get my certification. And so long story short, it was just, that is really what kind of helped me kind of really find a place within mountain biking, I guess, my own kind of place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think there's so much power in riding with like-minded people, whether they're male or
Yes.
female, or it doesn't, that's
Yeah.
irrelevant, but just like-minded. I know, you know,
Mhm.
my girlfriend rides, she rode motocross her whole life. And so she understands how to like bikes work. And then I was riding a lot of mountain bikes and she's like, well, I want a mountain bike. And I was like, well, let's see if you want to do it. Like, don't just do it because
Nice.
I'm doing it. Like, that's
Right.
fine. Like, honeymoon stage is over. Like, you don't, if
Yeah.
you don't want to do this, you don't have to. So I like borrowed a bike. We went riding and she ripped because she knows how to ride
Nice.
a dirt bike. You know, the only
Yeah.
problem was fitness, which, like, how are you going to
Mhm.
have bike fitness if you're not
Right.
riding a bike?
Yeah.
So then she
Totally.
bought a bike and blah, blah, blah. And then I travel often. And it's like,
Mhm.
now she's in the crew that, like, I don't need to be there. I don't even want to be there. Like, if I can't
Yeah.
ride, you can go ride with these like-minded humans. And it's,
Yeah.
there's something about it and it takes away, and there's always, you know, horror stories of like bad groups or like no drop rides and they just drop everybody. And it's like, I don't want to
Yeah.
ride with those people anyway. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, it's so neat how the same activity can change based on the people you're with.
Oh, yes.
Like,
Yeah. The
that,
dynamic, it's
it's crazy.
and it is, and it's group dynamics, and it's interesting too because, and this is why I tell people who do have a sour taste in their mouth because they went on that one group ride and they just didn't enjoy it, right? Because anytime you get a permutation of other people in a group, it changes the dynamic completely, right? And same goes for as a coach. Like I could be coaching a clinic and I, you know, it'll be completely different than the next clinic just based on the personalities and the way, you know, experience and level and all these things. Um, but I do think it's such a, mountain biking is an interesting sport because it's something you can do by yourself, right? It's, you know, it's you on the bike really essentially, but then you add in these other dynamics and it's so interesting. You know, we're all kind of moving forward, hopefully, moving forward on the same trail. And you know what I mean? Like it's bound to, you know, it's funny. I want to make a reel that's about group dynamics, just like the reluctant caboose and like, you know, like the person who is like constantly complaining or like there's always like, or the person who always gets the mechanical or, you know, so it is an interesting dynamic. But I love riding with groups. I think it's one of those things that I always try to set myself up for, like, there's no expectations. There's no expectations when I go into these group rides. I'm there to be with my friends, there to have a good time. But aside from that, like, whatever happens, however many miles we ride, whatever we decide to session, I just kind of let those things happen as the day goes on. I try not to get too in my head about what to expect, right? So,
Do you feel, because you are at Jess the Maker, that when you go into these group dynamics with, like, not your core group of friends,
okay.
that people have an expectation for you?
Oh, like to
Does
be
that question
funny
make sense?
or
I don't know. Like, I feel like, because I guess I'll say mine, and then because I
yeah.
host this outdoor podcast and I interview, like,
Mhm.
actual pro athletes and creators, and, like, they think I'm good at shit. Like, because I've had Emily Harrington on the podcast, and then I
Yes,
go to the indoor climbing gym, they assume that I'm like, I
you're good.
suck at everything. I just enjoy it. So is it
Okay.
like this, and maybe it is to be funny, like, oh, you're a comedian, tell me a joke. It's the same old, like, but do you ever feel that or get into those situations that, like,
Okay. Yeah, this is a great question. I did have just recently, just this last weekend, a bunch of friends, we went to this area here in Bentonville called Handcut Hollow, and it's sort of one of those areas. They make a lot of the trail builders or different trail areas here make these areas where there's sort of like a hub that you can ride different trails from a certain point. So there's like a return trail, and then you could do all these fun lines down. And anyways, that's one of these areas. And as soon as we pull in the parking lot, this van rolls up, and this guy gets out, and he starts talking to me like he knows me. And so I was like, "Hey man, like, yeah, great to see you." And he's like, "Oh, by the way, just to make sure, like, I know you, but you don't know me." And it was one of those situations where, like, he follows me on Instagram. Him and he has 3 boys and his wife, they all ride bikes. And this guy, his name's Casey, super nice. We ended up riding with him quite a bit that day, and he ended up showing us some of these fun lines. Okay, so I can't say that I'm like I'm a good mountain biker. I'm not. It's hard. It's hard for me to, like, tout my skills. I don't know. Maybe it's just a me thing, I think. But, like, um, but also I've posted some stuff online of me. Like, I've dropped the hammer. It's one of the, like, kind of like a little gap drop here in the area. And so I think, he had said, like, "Oh, I've seen you drop the hammer. Like, this drop is going to be, like, a totally fine." And so I think part of me was like, felt the pressure of, like, oh, now I definitely have to do this one, right? But I think what was cool was Casey totally got to see me run through my whole thought process, or, like, how I think through if I'm going to do something or not, which is not something I don't share online. I do share that online, which I think is something important. And I think something that I like sharing, because I want people to see it's not just a cool shred it, right? It's not, "Hey, look at me, do this cool thing." It's me sitting on the toilet an hour before being like, "I don't know if I'm going to do that. Like, am I going to do that? Am I going to, like, I think showing people, like, I think that's why a lot of my content feels so relatable, is people could be like, "Wow, like, I've been there. I've felt that too." And it's okay to be scared, and those kinds of things. So I think, yes, to your question, I have felt sometime, I guess in that situation, I was like, "Oh, well," but I always get back to, I don't have to prove anything to anyone. Um, but my partner did do the drop, and then I was like, "Well, now I have to do it."
well, yeah,
We
that's
Yeah,
always.
I mean, I was like, "All right, he did it, so I'm gonna do it." But just some friendly competition. But
It's off to the stranger for being like, I know you, you don't know me. Because sometimes I get that, and people just talk, and I'm nothing, but they talk to you like they know you because they feel like they know
yeah,
you,
and I'm
which is
glad. I like
it's
that.
really cool. But
Yeah.
the other side of that coin is they only know the you
Oh,
that
mhm.
you're showing, um,
Mhm.
and it's like the closest you could get
Yeah.
And I listened to a podcast a long time ago, and it was Will Ferrell, and he was like, people come up to me and they're like, you're Will Ferrell. And he's like, I am Will Ferrell. Like, but like, who are you? Or it's like, and it's like,
Right.
it's an interesting thing. I'm being like, oh, Jess, I'm Adam. I follow you on Instagram. And now you have like a groundwork of just like this
Context. Yeah.
stream,
Mhm.
like, and
Yeah.
it's a weird dynamic. And I can't pretend like I have it often, but like it is sometimes I go skiing and people are like, you're Adam X. And I'm like, I am.
Yeah. I am. That is I. That is
But
I. Well,
now
I
we're
think what makes it awkward is, well, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel I'm the awkward one. So when people come up to me, I'm always aware. I'm a kind of like a little too self-aware in the moment where I'm like, okay, Jess, don't be weird, don't be awkward. Like I'm going through those same motions. So if you, this is just a public service announcement. If you ever see me out anywhere, I do love when people come up and introduce themselves or, say they enjoy the content or they hate the content, whatever. Like I just, come introduce yourself. Can't promise my response is going to be not awkward. It probably will be. But I will say, Adam, is that my my closest of friends have all been like, the thing that they love about my content is they're like, it's you. Like they don't think I'm not putting on a show. I'm not like I act that way. This is who I am as a human. And so in a lot of ways it makes me feel really like good because I'm like I'm not trying to be something I'm not. I just putting stuff out there. And granted, there are times where I get in my head or I'm like, this isn't probably that funny. But then I'm like, I don't really care. And then I just like, I have to like get out my own head. But it's reassuring when I hear like my best friends being like, who would have thought you just posting how you are would it was just funny. It's
Who
just
would have
funny.
thought that's relatable content?
Yeah.
But
Who would have thought?
that's a testament to as why you can put out this content so consistently because you're not acting. Like
Right.
you're just being you and then putting it on paper.
Yeah. Tapping
Right.
into
Or I
experiences,
don't know,
tapping
putting it on
into,
paper. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, okay. Well, we could like
Yeah,
talk
let's
about that.
dive into it. Let's dive into the creative process.
Yes, let's do it. So yeah, I think one of the things too now of being a content creator is now whenever I'm anywhere doing anything, I'm constantly like, oh, that would be a good idea, or that would be a good idea, or I could see that being a reel. And let me just tell you, at first, I was just in my notes app on my iPhone and just brain dumping stuff in there. Turns out that was getting that was so chaotic. It was just a random brain dump. It literally, I think it was called brain dump, like reels. It was like reels brain dump. And I would, anytime I had an idea, just add a next thing on top, right? And it would just kind of sort down. Um, and I guess from being in the sort of tech world for a while, there's so many great tools out there that exist to organize said ideas. And so
Said thoughts.
what's that? And thoughts. Yeah.
Said thoughts.
Said thoughts. And so I had used Trello in the past. It's something, it's kind of like a Kanban. You can use it as like a Kanban board or whatnot. But basically, you have cards. So you add a thing and it becomes a card. And so anytime I would get an idea, I would just create a card. That way I could go in, you could literally click into that card and add notes. So if it was a very broad idea, like I just posted one today that was, mountain biking with your partner. And so in that, anytime I got an idea or like a saying or, or a scenario that was related to that idea, I would pop that note in there. And then that card just kind of lived and I could drag the cards, reorder them. If it's a content partnership with a brand, I tag it with like a certain color. So I'm like, okay, these are my paid partnerships. These are my whatever. And then I prioritize them that way. And each column, so there's like the ideas column. And then I have a working on column. So as soon as I'm starting to work on said idea, I drag it to that middle column. Those are the things I focus on. A lot of creators batch create content. I can't say that I'm the greatest at that. Sometimes, honestly, I might just be out there and I just think of the idea on the spot and it didn't even make it into the Trello board, but I'm just like, I'm gonna make this, right? And so I think there's some room for just flex, right? It doesn't have to be this. I'm not a rigid person when it comes to organization at all. So me doing this, like me having a Trello board is a big step for me because I am very disorganized when it comes to things. And I think, my therapist actually says like that's kind of the curse of the creative, right? Because the ability for us to think of ideas on the fly is what makes us like, good at what we do. But it doesn't help that also it's kind of like our crux of like, okay, focus, okay, prioritize, or whatever. So I've really had to get into this flow of um like kind of like funneling these ideas into one place and then moving them across. And then it's a really rewarding feeling though to bring it over to the done column. Like I always am like, did that one. Cool, So yeah,
Yeah,
if
you've
that's
created a
helpful for anyone.
process. You've created a
It's a
process for it, which, to be fair, this is your full-time job. So, like, if you
yes,
don't create a process, it
right.
completely consumes you. And, like, I'm
Yes,
sure, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but, like, there's times you just wanna go for a mountain bike, or your friends just
right.
want like, "Jess, we're not creating right now. Like, put that
Yes.
for your work tomorrow." Like,
Yeah.
that's do
Mhm.
you ever have just like the most like my notes, and I know you said you don't really do notes anymore, but my notes will be like cheese stick, glue, Al Gore. I'm like, I have no idea where I was going with that one. Like,
Yeah,
like
totally. So it was getting that way, which is why I was like, what does this even mean? Like like being able to actually translate what I actually wrote. And so Trello has been super helpful because I could elaborate on it, over time or whatever.
does this
And
mean I'm on
so yeah.
track to be an actual creator? I'm
Yeah,
getting there. This
I
is
think
my
you're
first,
getting somewhere, man.
my last note was literally Al Gore and then rhythm. And I was like,
Rhythm.
I gotta do something with Al Gore dancing.
That's amazing.
So
Yeah.
you can feel that if you want, or we can collab on it.
That's
The
amazing.
algorithm, because that's all everyone talks about right now is like the algorithm. So then that's my brain is like Al Gore, and like maybe we can get some climate change in there and like
Yeah. It's a whole
dancing.
song, like an auto-tuned song, like,
Yeah, there's something there. It's the
there's
Al
something.
Gore rhythm.
I
And
love it.
this is my theory on gaming. I'm telling everyone my secrets right now of
Sure.
gaming the algorithm, because that's what we're
Yes.
trying to fight right now.
Yeah.
You I'm playing, this is a lie, but in my hypothetical mind, I'm playing a silent track that says Mark Zuckerberg is amazing. So that because there's definitely a bot in there that's picking that up
And it'll,
and it's
like, bump that up. It'll be
yeah.
yes.
So I'm
Yeah.
just secretly
That's what
like
I do. How did you know? No,
that's why I'm saying it. Like Mark Zuckerberg, you're the greatest. Like I
you're
loved
the
your
greatest.
podcast with Joe Rogan. I agree with everything you do. You're
Oh
doing
my god.
great. Please pump
That's
this up.
hilarious.
But there's a
Yeah.
bot listening right now that's gonna like generate
Yeah.
like that's that's the
Yeah.
secret. That's the secret.
Oh,
I think this
yeah.
is
Okay. There it is.
it's a silent track. It's like
It's a
the old
silent track.
Kiss albums. If you play it backwards, that's it's the same
That's what
thing.
it says.
Devil worshiping Mark Zuckerberg hand
Totally
in
makes sense. It
um
goes hand in hand there.
let's talk about the algorithm. Like
Yeah,
genuinely.
I'd love to. Love
You are
to.
so you seem to be on it. Like you're
Yeah.
obviously you create good content and that's important.
Thank you.
But I feel like I got some home runs that don't have any views. So like
Okay.
what let's
Yeah.
talk about I
Let's
mean, I
talk
don't have
about
anything else to talk about on that because I
I
don't know. I don't understand it. Is it time? Is it and you don't have to tell your secrets if you don't want to,
I don't have
but
any secrets. And I'm happy to share what and I've had folks and I've had friends, just like Instagram friends or people that I know here in Bentonville that are like that have asked me. And so I'm not like it's not a secret. I want to share it with other people too. And like what I've done. I don't know that what I've done is the greatest way or the right way or what, whatever, but I could share what has worked for
it's
me.
working. Yeah, it's
And
working.
it's working. And so I want to share that. And so I'll go back to Okay, I'll go back to Jess in February. How about that? Jess the Maker in February. I had
And this is
about,
like your turning point.
yeah, I'd say this is about my turning point. Um, I at that point, I wasn't like, I want to be a content creator. I didn't have that moment for a little while. But that was the moment that I was just kind of like, I was kind of sprinkling some videos here and there just for fun, making a few things. And I think a few friends just were like, "This is so funny." Like, I literally laughed out loud, and that the fact that making it gives me joy and, like, making myself laugh, but then the fact that I'm bringing joy to other people, I was like, "Ah, okay, like, I see, I could kinda see this." And, like, Reels, I think we were all under the we all knew that, like, TikTok, Reels, everything, especially algorithm, right, is all going there. And I was like, well, what if I just like put some funny videos together and just like see what happens? Um, I remember distinctly making a video that was all about, like how to afford a high-end mountain bike. And literally that day, my fiance Tony, he works remotely. So he was working and he couldn't film. Like normally I'm like, hey man, could you like film me? And he's like, I'm in a meeting. So I was like, all right. I'll get the tripod. I got the tripod out and I filmed this whole thing in not a very long time. And I edited it together to, some music. And I had this moment where I was like, I watched it, right? Like sometimes you create something and then you watch it over and over and over again. And you're like, because you're editing. So you're like forced to watch it over and over again. And you're just like, after a while, it's just kind of like, is this even funny? And I was like, screw it. And I just posted it. And then it got like over 500,000 views. And I was like, whoa. And so I think at that point was the point where I was like, could I could I make a living out of this? Also at that time, I think I only had a few thousand followers. I can't remember exactly at what point, but I know in February I was like, maybe I had 2,000 followers. And so it's now almost September and I'm at like 28,000 followers. And so that growth has
You had
really,
2,000 followers in February.
yes. Yep.
That is insane. Sorry to
Mhm.
interrupt you. That is
No,
like,
yeah, it is insane. And
that's
so,
exponential growth, which can be really bad actually for
yes, to grow too
everything,
fast.
for your algorithm.
Yeah, I'm very aware of it. And so I'm like, I don't okay, well, okay, I'll back up. So I had 2,000 followers around that time, and I used to get excited, like, to see, like, it grow a little bit or a little bit. I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." And then it just kinda blew up, and the thing I also think that helped, so when I started to get intentional about it, because I can't say that I was just like, oh, I don't care. I did care. I wanted to, if I was like, if I'm going to do this, like I have to grow, right? And I have to get in front of more people. And so I was like, I had a goal at that point. I was like, all right, what if I tried to get 10,000 followers by the end of the year? That was my goal. And
Crushed.
so crushed it. Okay. Yeah. I was like, okay, done. No. So I was like, oh man, okay. But so at that time, I was like, I'm going to get 10,000 by the end of the year. And I was just like listening to other content creators just on Instagram or TikTok or like listening to all these things. I tried to pay attention to three things. Okay. One of them was just being consistent and showing up. Right. I had to stop getting in my own way about being like, oh, that's not funny. So really just consistency and posting. I didn't post every day. There were times where I would post, there were times in that stretch of time where maybe I'd post one reel a week. And so, but then I also had to start to not worry so much about, and I do love quality as a creator. I love my stuff being like, good, right? But I also think that was getting in my way a little bit. And so I was like, okay, maybe if I just boost the quantity up a little bit and not have to, like, I'm not saying lower the quality down to here, but just like don't have to strive for like it to be this most amazing thing ever, right? And so consistency. The other thing that I did that I thought was super, that I think helped me a lot, was I would post a reel and there's this weird way that you could actually see who shares those reels to their stories. Okay. Um, you can't get to it from your reels page. You have to get to it from your normal facing profile grid page. you click on those little 3 dots and it like opens up the, options, and you can see view story reshares. So this has to be something kind of recent. Like if it, I can't really look back because probably someone didn't share one of my reels that's like older, right? This is like within the first 24 hours of posting that reel. Look at who's sharing that reel. Okay. And so I would do that, and I would go in there and I would thank every single person. I'd be like, hey, thank you so much for sharing that. That means a lot. Like, I really appreciate it, because I did. And then if they weren't following me already, they would follow me back, or they would, they would follow. And so the engagement, so that's 2. So consistency and then engagement.
Should we make this a paywall right here? Like, I feel like we're getting like,
am I giving too much?
No,
I said I was gonna
I'm I'm recording, obviously, but I'm taking notes. I am.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's not a secret. I don't know. No one told me that. I just did that myself, and I think it helped. That's all I'm saying. Okay. I don't know that it definitely did, but I thought it helped, and it definitely, people were following me back. So, really just engaging people, but not just, the other thing I'll say is like in the most authentic way that you can, right? Like engage with someone on the internet. And so I wouldn't just like type the same thing every time. Like I'd genuinely be like, hey, especially if they like posted something with like, they would share my reel to their story, and they would write a little thing like, oh my God, this happened to me. Or like they said something in their story. I'd like try to engage and bring up the fact that they went through that too, or whatever. Anyway, so engaging in an authentic way. Same goes for, as soon as you're posting that reel, don't just like post it and be like, cool, I'm done for the day, see you later, like gonna go for my mountain bike right now. Like I found that on reels that I would do that, like when I didn't know that it mattered, because I'd be like, oh, I'll engage later, I'll make some time later. I found that with the algorithm, and this is something other content creators do talk about, is don't post and ghost. So share that reel, and then go in there and, like maybe reserve the next hour to just make sure that you're responding to comments like as they come in, and that is going to help boost your post, hopefully. So that was number 2. So consistency, engage with people. And then the third thing is like, I think when it comes to the actual content, okay, like this is the hardest part, is it's got to be something that, especially if you want to be a content creator, like I think digging down and understanding like at the core of who you are, like how does that shine through your content? Okay. Maybe you're sarcastic and dry. Maybe you're just like, I don't know, like whatever it is, like, I think it's like, how do you personify yourself that way? And so when I think of, and I think I mentioned this earlier, but my common thread throughout, my life has been humor and creativity. And so I weave that in to every video that I make in some way, in one way or the other, because that's my brand. I'm not saying that's what everyone has to do. Everyone doesn't have to make funny videos, right? You can make helpful videos. You could be inspirational. Like, I have some friends who are just like the best advice givers, or, like have a way with words and say really beautiful things. And like, so whatever that is at the core, it's like, try to find what that is, like, so those are my 3 things. Is that helpful?
I think so. Yeah. And it's funny how you say, like, I have 6,000 followers, like not I have a quarter of what you have. And like someone commented something and I responded right away, and they were like, I can't believe I got a rebuttal on this. I can't believe I got a comment back. And I was like, what?
Oh, like surprised you took the time to respond.
Yeah. But they were like genuinely like they were like throwing like sarcastic shade, and I like responded. They said this is offensive or something, but they were being funny.
Right.
I mean, I literally made my brain is a mess, but I made a hot dog video, but I made a dog hot, and you use the actual meat as the bun, and you put the bun in but that's my brain. I don't know why. I belong in like a really creepy, weird world of food talk is where my that's my brain. But this guy, and his handle was like 3 people on 3 people, 1 bike. And I was like, 3 people, 1 bike offends me. And then but he was like, thank you for responding. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I have nothing
Yep.
but time. Like, I'll respond to everybody. But
Yeah.
it is, people want to be seen, including
Yeah.
myself. Like, you post
Yeah.
something and you want people to see it and you want people to share it. And sadly, it makes you feel good. And like, if people don't respond or react or share, then you're like, oh, am I doing this right? Does it like, it's a really weird feeling, which is
Yeah.
my, I guess, a segue here is like, how do you,
Mm-hmm.
like, one post gets 500,000 views and the next one gets 10,000, which is still great, but like,
Yeah.
that can F with your
It
psyche.
can. It can. But at the same time, I think the more you do it, like I did one. Okay. I'll share that exact situation, right? So I posted one. It was around the time that uh like Stranger Things was wrapping up, like that the most previous was season 4. And I was like so stoked because I was like, oh, I'm gonna show this. Like I'm stuck in the upside down, or I forget like what I don't even remember exactly. Well, here's a few reasons why I don't think it performed well. One, it was like I don't know that it was that great content, but I posted on a Sunday. I feel like Sundays aren't really the best day to post. Um, but it got, I don't even know. Honestly, I don't know how many views it got at this point. It's definitely like a lower viewed one. And there was a moment where I was like a little bit bummed. I was like, oh man, like I spent this time, I put this video together. But honestly, like it's one of those situations where like the more you hold on to that, like the long, like it doesn't serve you, right? And so you just have to, I know it's easier said than done, right? But you just have to move on. Like, right? It's on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next idea. And that's why having that Trello board and being able to see like all the other things. And then also coming back to like, hey, I made this and it was fun to make. I didn't feel stressed. I come back to like, you had fun making this, so who cares? Right. And so if you're finding that you're getting bummed out that something didn't perform as well as you thought, like that's okay. Like move on to the next thing. There are times I've actually reposted ones that have done better in the past and I reposted the exact same thing, right? So sometimes it might not even be the content. It might be the algorithm, like the time at which you
Al
posted,
Gore.
all these things.
It's
So
Al Gore, I'm telling you, he controls everything.
algorithm.
Al Gore
Yeah.
controls the world. Yeah, I'm the
I need
opposite.
this to be a GIF, like a GIF of some sort.
We'll
Yeah.
I'll work on it. I'll find some old footage of him playing, like, there's probably footage of him and like Bill Clinton playing the saxophone somewhere.
I'm
Like,
sure. I'm sure.
that's the era of,
Yeah,
hopefully they're playing with
exactly.
like Real Big Fish or some crappy ska band, and it'd be great. My
Perfect.
problem, I'm gonna make this
Okay.
all about me. This podcast is all about me.
Oh.
My content is fire, and anyone who disagrees with me is wrong, and it should be getting shared. It should be
Yeah.
getting likes. No, but it's so interesting. Like, I looked at your
Yeah.
TikTok, and it's not. It's the
Yeah.
same, right? It's the
Yeah.
same content, and
Yeah.
like it crushes on Instagram,
Yeah.
and it
Yep.
falls flat on TikTok.
Yeah. And
Like,
I don't. And one, I don't have as many followers on TikTok. I kind of got started late to TikTok. I treat TikTok as an afterthought and TikTok knows it. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah, no, it knows.
it knows. And plus like most content I'm making with Instagram and my followers there and the way that they react and the way, like that. And so really all I'm doing to TikTok is just resharing. And I I I am starting to grow on there a little bit like at a time. And it's reminding me of like my beginning days of Instagram. And so I just go back to that of that feeling of like, okay, like I've done this before. I know not everything is going to perform like amazing, but I don't get hung up on it. Or try not to get hung up on it. I can't say I don't get hung up on it. There are times I do, but I I think even now I get less hung up on it than I used to because I've been through it and I know that I'll get through it and I know that I'll post something. Not everything. Don't try to make everything a viral hit, I guess, is kind of the thing, right? There's gonna be, you might get that, and then you might get some that are just like, and so that creating, I think it's also like the intention of creating, yes, it's helpful when people receive it and are excited, and especially when you thought it was like fire, like you're saying, like this is fire, But I also treat it as like it's just yet another like notch in your belt. Like you just made another thing, and you should be proud of that thing, no matter how it performs, because it's something you made and it's something that you learned from. So yeah,
Yeah, it's
don't worry,
such a.
man. It's gonna.
Oh, I don't care.
And
I mean, what?
well, and 6,000 followers isn't anything to poo poo. That's awesome.
No, it's good. I'm fine, and I don't make. I definitely don't cater to my audience, which is interesting. And that's something you have to do, kind of. Like I got most of my
Yeah.
followers off of a web series that was created with my buddy and I. Corey Potter and I created this web series based on the school bus I lived in and traveled in. And it was very inspirational and it was beautiful. But now I just post like garbage food things, and because it's like what makes me laugh so hard. But so
Yeah.
but you have to, you have to kind of I have to regain. I have to gain a weird Furby food audience. So
Yeah.
that's
There
fine.
you go.
Um,
They're out there, man. They're out there.
oh, I'll find them. How
Yeah.
far out are you as far as like, because
Oh,
I assume you're treating this like a job, but like, are you
yeah.
creating a video today and putting it out tomorrow, or do you have 30 just in the wheelhouse? Like,
Oh, I,
what does your week look like? Let me ask that. Like, do you stack?
okay.
You treat it like a 9 to 5?
Mm,
How do you manage
that's a great
this,
question.
whatever this is?
So that is a really good question, as I think, constantly trying to reframe how my weeks go, because, and I would actually say that this week is going really well. I know it's only Tuesday, but there will be weeks where like, I'm like, oh shit, I don't have anything. Like that's the worst, when I'm like, oh, I really like, and it's not anxiety or feeling that I need to create something for it's this, I really genuinely want to. Like I genuinely deep down I'm like, what's the next idea I'm going to work on, or which, and so most times I try to get ahead. I try. Doesn't mean I always succeed at that, but I I actually started to, in my head, think of things like, because if I have too much structure, I don't follow that structure, right? Like if I go into my calendar and block off like, all right, from this time to this time, this is this time, from this time. But I do have a general sense of certain days, and certain days that I like to keep. For instance, like I told you I mountain bike coach as well. And that could get really sporadic, especially here in Northwest Arkansas, where it's super hot and I have to front load all my days with coaching because it's too hot to coach past noon, right? And so that's been a little bit difficult to navigate, just to be able to fit people in to do one-on-one lessons or clinics and things like that. So that throws a wrench in things, but I generally try to keep coaching to like Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? And then my creation days are, I try to keep it to like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And like Mondays, so that's I call that my maker days. So typically that day I should already have footage because I'll get to filming Friday. But so maker Monday, that's when I sit and I'll like try to edit as much as I can. I'll try to respond to people, I'll try to do a lot of that stuff on Mondays. And so that's Mondays. Then Tuesdays I might have coaching and sprinkle in a lot of other stuff. But then Wednesdays, same thing. If I have anything that I have left or I need to do some filming, do that on Wednesdays, and same thing with Fridays. So Fridays, like, I don't know, everyone looks forward to Friday, right? Like that's why I usually save filming for Fridays, because I look forward to doing that. And so I'll try to get as much footage as I can for the videos that I want to create for that following week. So I say this, and in theory, I wish I kept to it 100% all the time. It doesn't look like that on any given day. Like on any given day, like it's life, right? Things pop in. I have stopped taking design like inquiries. It was really hard for a while to go from saying, oh yeah, I'm Jess, I'm a graphic designer, to saying that I don't do that anymore. It's really hard. It was hard for me to make that transition, but I had to start saying no to those things so that I had time to like focus on the content stuff. I feel very fortunate in that this area that we live in is much more affordable, you know, than Boulder or like Boise where I lived before this. So you know, like I do have the luxury of not having like cost of living is low. So I don't feel the pressure being like, oh, I guess I have to take that design client or that project because I can make a little extra money and just, you know, not have to, you know. So I have been able to make that shift and that was hard because when you identify for so long as one thing, you know,
It's terrifying.
um,
I'm
yeah.
struggling with that now with
Oh.
photographing weddings for 15
Mm,
plus years, and I build vans
yeah.
on the side, and like now this is becoming
Your full
my
time.
full-time job. And like, okay, it's an hour. It's 1 hour a week that I have to interview somebody, but like it's so much, it's the
Yeah.
back end. Like you're making a 10-second video, but it's like, do you know how much time that took? Like, and if
Yeah.
you're pulling away from that,
Yes.
it's weird. It's
It
a
is.
career change with no guarantees.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you're not
No
taking a
guarantees.
new job with the salary. You're like walking away
No.
from arguably that salary.
Right. Right.
And then
And
go ahead.
well, I was gonna say it's not like I mean, I'm not breaking bank. Like I'm not making bank right now. You know, I still am working on putting together, you know, sponsorship decks and like all of my pricing and things like that. Like it, you know, that's something like it was so easy to do that once I had so much time under my belt, like as a designer, it was so easy for me to be like, okay, that like I would just throw out a price with confidence and be like, this is what it costs,
Right.
and people be like, okay. But now as a content creator, it feels it's a little bit like the Wild West, you know, because you've got content creators, but they might serve all different industries, right? And I'm a content creator in a very niche industry, the mountain bike industry. And so, but what I will say is I have like Instagram internet friends who also do a lot of content creation, you know, like Colorado Kid, Outside Brandon, like I've actually like reached out to some of them and we share like knowledge. I feel like that's very helpful. You know, Marley Blonsky, for instance, is another. She's local here to Bentonville now, but she started All Bodies on Bikes, and so she was able to kind of share some stuff that she has done with brands and like how she, you know, makes money. And so that's been helpful to kind of share that knowledge, like because there's no, yeah, you don't get like presented with a salary and here are your benefits for being a content creator. Isn't this awesome? Like
Yeah.
it's not, yeah,
I had Brandon on maybe a year and a half ago, a year ago. And I was like, when we got off, I was like, you're getting paid, right? And he was like, no. And I was like, dude,
yeah,
you should get paid.
yeah,
And he was still like,
right,
he probably had
growing, yeah,
12K at that point, but I was like, you should get paid. Like,
yeah,
and then, Jiro came along and I was like, there you
yep,
go.
there it
Like,
is, there it
I'm like,
is.
but um, so let me ask you this, and you don't have to say numbers and you
Yeah,
don't even have to answer this question, but like,
yeah,
how are you getting paid right now? Like, is it Instagram
yeah.
Reels? Like, that's your main source, or is it sponsors?
So I have no sponsors yet. I'm actually talking to one company though. I won't say who they are yet, but I am talking with one company right now about that. So that'll be really great. That'd be my first sponsor. But I up until now, I've only been really working on a sort of content partnership basis. So, you know, a brand might reach out to me. I'll use the example of like Strava. So and here's another thing that I thought was really fascinating was I didn't know anyone at Strava. Okay. I didn't have a foot in the door at Strava. Okay. I could barely remember to turn my Strava on. Okay. That's me. Okay.
Got it.
Um, I made a reel and I think it was like if all I talked about in therapy was mountain biking. And I actually I allude to that like I'm talking to the therapist and I'm like having a breakdown because I got to the end of a segment and forgot to turn my Strava on. And I just happened to, and normally I actually kind of forget to tag brands. Like, you know, like sometimes I'm like, but like I was very, very distinctly, I remember being like, oh, I'll tag Strava. Sometimes companies actually look at those things. And so that is exactly how I got connected with Strava. Was I tagged them in a video. And keep in mind, I might have had, I don't remember exactly how many followers, but I might have been still under 10K at that point. So it wasn't like I am doing now. And they had someone reach out to me from their social team, and they were like, "We would love to, we found you, you tagged us, we love your content, like we'd love to work with you." And I think I was just like kind of pooping my pants a little bit at that point, because I was like, "What? Strava?" You know? And so, what I liked about working with Strava, that's, a large company. They don't just focus on mountain biking. Obviously, they focus on all types of cycling, hiking, they have climbing now, right? Climbing, freaking
Everything.
whatever, everything. Just sitting, probably. Um, I would
I
have
have
the
all
Q.
the KOMs.
Yeah,
You're
me
claiming
too.
the Q, I'm claiming the K.
Okay, I've got the QOM of sitting. You've got the KOM. So yeah, so Strava, working with the good people there, they were awesome to work with. I just have to say, they gave me free creative, like creative freedom. That's all creative could ever want, is creative freedom, right? And they were like, they were just like, "Here's what we're going to pay you." Like, they just straight up told me, it wasn't like a crazy amount, but it was a nice amount. Like, I was like, "Oh, that's just nice." So they were like, "We're going to give you this. And we just want to do a quick like interview." So it was like, I actually just filled out, like, I answered the questions like on my computer. It wasn't like a face-to-face interview. It was, fill out these questions. And then they sent a photographer, and I did like a 2-hour photo shoot. And then I created a reel that I pitched them the idea. So they were like, "If you have any ideas, let us know." And then I pitched the idea. They were like, "That's great." I made it. They were like, "Cool." And that was it, and they had posted that. So that is primarily what I do right now, is work with brands in that capacity of like content partnership. And so, yeah, it's hard to price,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
because not all reels are created equally, right? Like, some reels take no time to put together, but something a little more elaborate, like the one I did for Strava, does take a lot of edits, does take a lot of, like, hours of listening to different music and being like, "Is this a good song for the backtrack?" Like, there's a ton of things that go into it. And so it's really hard when a brand reaches out and they're like, "How much do you charge for reels?" And I'm like, "Well, that kind of depends," and it does. And so I give a range. I say it could cost anywhere from this to this. Depends on the idea. We could work together on that idea. But once we have that idea, I'll have a better idea of what it might cost. And so
Well,
kind
and
of go from
there's
there.
so much. Like, is it my creative? Is it your creative? Am I just
Mm,
an actress or an actor in this said creative? Like,
yeah,
that's where it gets
I, it does. I luckily, for the most part, I think what brands, and I think a lot of brands have seen this, like, they want the creators to do what they do, because, obviously, and I've had to say to some companies, like, they'll send like an example, like, "Oh, we really like this ad." And I'll like watch it, and I'm like, that's not like, why are you coming to me? Like, it sounds like you should just go to like an advertising agency and have them make this commercial for you, because that's like what you're
yeah, my
showing me is
audience
just like,
isn't gonna be fooled. Like, they're not gonna fall for it.
yes. Right. And so I generally just try to phrase it like, "Hey, like, especially my audience likes the content I create because it's relatable and it's fun, it's funny." I try to level the playing field in the mountain bike industry, really. And I think, like, I love that, one, people respond to me and they're like, "I don't even like mountain biking and I like your content." Those are some people, right? Then you've got people who are just getting into the sport and they see someone actually struggling, or like these funny things that are all about the struggle, or like, whatever with mountain biking. And they're like, "That's really cool." And then I have, pros following me too, that also find it funny. So I'm like, there's something there, like this relatable thread that all mountain bikers and even people who don't mountain bike are just like, "That's funny." And I think I really, really want, that's like one of my fears, is like, I want to hold on to that because that's what I love. And I don't ever really want to create something for a quick buck, if that makes sense, right? Like,
No, it's so
yeah,
true. I mean, we deal with it.
yeah.
we have sponsors that keep the wheels turning, and like that's how we eat, and just pay for hosting. Like this isn't
Right.
free
It
to
costs money,
do.
right? Yeah.
Uh, and like there's some brands that'll give you a ton of money, and you're like,
Mm,
that doesn't it doesn't align with anything that we do.
right.
And it's hard. Like it's an easy complaint to have, like, woe is me, but like
Yeah.
if it doesn't align,
Hmm.
it
It's
doesn't
got to be a good
align.
fit. Yeah. It's
Like
got to be a
we
good
work,
fit.
yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's being transparent on both ends. Like I think
Yeah.
this episode will end up being Woodchuck will be a sponsor, Woodchuck Cider, and I'm like, I don't drink. As long as you guys know that, like, and people
Yeah.
in our crew do, but
Yeah.
like me specifically,
Yeah.
I
You
don't
don't.
drink. And they're like, we
Hmm.
like you and we like what you represent. And like, that's fine. And I'm not anti drinking. I just don't.
Yeah.
Um, so it's like, it's cool when you can be, and that's the only way to grow, I think, is to be real. Cause eventually I don't want to take
Yeah.
a brand's money
Yeah.
for 10 episodes and then never talk to them again. I'm like, no, no, no. I
Yeah.
want this to be
Yeah.
like, I
A
want to help
relationship.
you. I want you to help me. And like, let's grow this thing. Like, let's knock it out of
Totally.
the park. So I think there's power in no, and
Yeah.
power in staying true to yourself and what you do,
Yes.
what you represent. And like, it's hard at times.
It is. It is. It
it's,
is. And
it's
I think there's a delicate balance between. I mean, I also have worked with companies where like the company actually will give ideas like if I pitch the initial idea and then they contribute to the idea. I love that, right? I'm not like I want people to contribute to the idea, but also it's got to work. It's got to make it better,
that's
right?
a
And
relationship. That's
yeah,
exactly
that's really exactly. Yeah, yeah.
what it should
So
be. Like, don't,
yeah,
don't
yeah,
throttle me, but like add fuel to the fire, please.
yeah,
Like, what if
yes,
we did this? And you're like, oh yeah,
yeah.
love it. Like
I love that.
that's why there
Yeah,
are creative teams.
exactly,
And that's why
exactly.
sometimes it's hard to be just
Yeah,
an individual, because you get,
yeah.
as you said, you get in your own head, you get in your own
You
space.
do, and
Um, it's crazy. Yeah, I don't know.
that's what. Oh,
Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say. I was just gonna say to like close that thought up. Like it's good. Like because I'm a solopreneur, like I actually find it helpful to have those ideas be floating around like when I used to work on creative teams. And so I do think, two heads better than one, like if you can make something better. And I hate the feeling of being like creating in a box. Do you know what I mean?
Oh
So
yeah.
even if I'm creating something that's not necessarily for like a paid gig or like for a brand, I'll show things to my fiance. I'll show things to friends, be like, "What do you think about this?" and get their reaction, or So I like getting feedback. I think as a designer, I think that comes from my design life of being so used to getting feedback and having to iterate, right? Like I think there's something valuable in getting feedback from people and knowing when it's good feedback and when it's not good feedback and when to push back. But generally, it's good.
For sure. I send all my videos to Ethan and other Adam Jabber, and they like when they respond, "Are you okay?" That's when I know I hit it. Like,
Yeah.
like, are you
Yeah.
good? I'm like, yep. I'm like, never been better. This is the
Yep.
premium content I want to be pushing out. So
Yes.
but feedback's important, and like sometimes they'll just say, "What if you put background audio right there?" or speed that, and you're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's extremely helpful. I've had you for an hour and 15 minutes, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. What, where do you see Jess the Maker in 6 months, Jess the Creator in 6 months, whatever you want to call
Mhm.
yourself? And like, where do you see
Yeah.
it in 5 years?
Yeah. So great question. Like I said, I really right now I'm working on trying to find brands, not just in the mountain bike industry, but kind of maybe dabbling outside the industry. Like I guess, like for as an example, like like a chocolate company. That's a bad idea, but like a beer company or like a Um, hot dog. Now I can't think of anything but hot dogs now that you said the dog hot thing. So, but yeah, let's just say there was like other companies that wanted to work together, but really also coming up with some sort of sponsorship type package, and I have brands that I know I want to work with, and so I need to do a better job of being proactive about reaching out to those brands. I think I've been playing some catch up with how much I've grown so quickly, and so now I'm kind of finding myself in this space where I'm like, okay, like I don't want to wait for people to come to me. I shouldn't have, like people are coming to me, but I also need to be proactive. And so I want to have something set up, something packaged, right? Of like, here are the kind of companies I want to work for. Maybe that's you. And this is the kind of thing that I love to do. Could we be a good fit? Like kind of, what I'm saying. So really kind of packaging that up in some way. Next 6 months, I'd love to, continue growing, but also try to establish those sponsorships before the end of by the next year. I've been wanting to start up YouTube. That's been a whole, yeah, that's like a whole nother level. And in fact, I think I spoke about this on the Segment podcast, but I already have, and this is actually really funny because I've hired another designer to create the branding for it because I don't have the time to do that anymore, right? And I value creative people because I was once a creative, designer. And so I, hired a guy. His name's Tyler B. Johnson, super amazing designer. And he's helped me kind of create a brand for this YouTube that I want to create. I don't think that's going to be called Jess the Maker. I don't want it to be called that because personally, like I have this personal brand and that's great, but I actually want this YouTube to be a bit more collaborative with not just me as like the face of it. I want other people. I want people in the community to come out and be a part of it. So that's called Dirt Scouts. So it's not a secret. It's called Dirt Scouts. And the branding is super cool. Like I can't wait to launch this. Like I'm so excited. I don't have a date for that yet, but I do see that happening in the next 6 months to a year. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, I like to keep things fluid. Like I maybe I'll be doing this in 5 years from now, but I think I'm always open to something else or what life. Start that YouTube already, girl. Yeah. No, I know everyone. I know. And I think there is this fear too. And so I guess I could relate to anyone here that's like, oh, I don't know if I want to get started on doing whatever, or I don't know if I want to, start creating reels, all these things. So like, I still feel all these things still. And that's how I feel about YouTube. I'm like, start another thing again. But I have all these ideas and I'm super excited to see them come to life. And so I'm hoping that with getting some sponsors on for Jess the Maker, that I can start focusing a bit more. And perhaps they would actually want to sponsor that as well as something as one of my initiatives. And so, yeah, those are my dreams right now. Those are the dreams.
Yeah, it sounds like you have like some type of plan. Everything swerves and we adapt and we change, but it seems like you have an idea. I'm shocked just personally that you are not taking advantage of YouTube Shorts because YouTube has been pushing shorts like crazy. And I think even just to grow your YouTube right now, you could even be like, you treat TikTok as secondary, like even just throwing those on there, like you have it. So like,
yeah,
it's like, it's just uploading another thing, which is sometimes a pain in the ass, but like, that's like a simple, I think, but who am I? I don't have any growth
like a quick win.
But it seems because YouTube is pushing shorts right now because they're trying to, beat TikTok and beat just like Instagram's trying to beat TikTok. So I think, not that I know anything, but that could be like an easy initial growth. And then that would fuel, at least maybe get some subscribers to the longer format.
Yeah.
What was it called? I want to say Dirt Diary.
Dirt Scouts.
Dirt Scouts. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Your story is like, I'm always nervous, and maybe I shouldn't say this to you, but like to just bring a creator on, because sometimes creators like, I don't know, I got lucky and here I
Oh,
am. You're like, come on, like, give me something. So like,
okay.
thank you for like having
Oh,
a realistic view on it and a goal,
yeah.
and like like it's
Yeah.
just refreshing to hear that like one, it's work. It's not
Yes.
sure it's really cool. Like you get to mountain
Yes.
bike every day, you get to travel, you get to but like it is work. You're putting a
It
lot of
is.
time in. You have to sit here in the morning when you could be doing something, talking to an idiot like me. Work. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing your story. Before I let you go, just brands to thank, people to thank, and where can people like go find your content?
Oh, well, thank you. Well, okay. Well, first of all, I wrote a Post-it note. It's gonna YouTube, YouTube Shorts. I'm gonna do it. I know. Okay. I appreciate it. I really do have that. I'm like, I just one extra step. Upload it to YouTube Shorts. I will do that. Okay. Who to thank? Yeah, thank you, Adamix, for having me on. And I guess Out of Collective too. This was so wonderful to be here, and I love what you're doing, and keep doing what you're doing out of the van. Um and yeah, I would just say, like, I'm working on launching my new website. Currently, I think my website is my design portfolio still. That's how, like, backed up I am. But I should be launching my new website soon. So I'll definitely be posting that out. But you could find me on Instagram or TikTok, and soon YouTube Shorts at Just the Maker. And this was lovely hanging out with you, Adam.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course, anytime. Talk soon.
Yes, of course. You are